Hello, and welcome to part 4 of Let's Roast Shitty Death Battle Ideas. Now, let's just get right into it. What are we going to be taking a look at today?
We'd be delighted to attend. Wouldn't miss it.
Gosh, thanks, Peter. That means a lot. Okay, see you there.
Damn it! Why did I even open the door? Ah! Getting excited. Now I gotta go to this thing. Ah! Bite me! Laughing already just thinking about it. Only one way to get out of this.
Oh, for the love of God, are you kidding me? Lucy versus ulquiorra. Okay, what the hell are you doing? What is this? How is it that every single time when I do one of these roasting bad death battle ideas, I think they can't go lower? And then they manage to come up with something that is worse than everything that has ever come before it. This one idea is so bad that I have to dedicate an entire episode to this one fight. I can't do it rapid fire like I did last time because there's so much wrong here. How do you manage to make an idea so bad that there's more to talk about in how terrible it is rather than how cool of a fight it could be? That is just impressively bad. This is so shit, I don't even know where to begin. And I guess let me start with this quick little disclaimer. Don't get me wrong, I love ulquiorra, I love Lucy, I'm a big fan of both of their anime. If you've seen my list of favorite anime, you would know that Bleach and Elfen Lied are two of my all-time favorite anime. I love them to death, and these are two of my all-time favorite anime characters, especially ulquiorra. However, with that being said, I don't think that means these two should fight, because them fighting is just hysterically bad. It is so bad, it is almost laughable, the thought of these two fighting. Because, oh god, where am I gonna begin with this? Let me use my 4-step system to hopefully give this some kind of structure and I don't just break down into a rant, which may very well happen anyway. But let's start with the most obvious. Compatibility. What the fuck? What is this? How is this fight supposed to work? Let's quickly go over these two. Ulquiorra is not only a ghost, so that already kind of breaks the fight. Now sure, you can argue that due to Lucy's sixth sense, she would be able to potentially perceive ulquiorra. That, however, is not the problem, but I'll get into that a little bit more. So, ulquiorra. Arguably one of the most powerful espada of all time. Despite his ranking as Espada 4, there is a lot of evidence presented by fans that he should have at the very least been Espada number 1. And there are a lot of points that I could use to establish that, but that's for another video. Now, ulquiorra is casually massively faster than light, as Bleach characters are casually FTL, even Lieutenant class Shinigami are capable of moving at such speeds. Ichigo was able to speed blitz 3 Lieutenant Class Shinigami with just his Shikai. This was before he even used his Bankai for the first time. Now, Ulquiorra was able to completely shit-stomp Ichigo on multiple occasions. And Lucy, at best, is sub-relativistic. Her greatest speed feat was her vectors was able to reach up into space in a matter of seconds, which many people have scaled that to being around sub-relativistic speeds. And I don't really feel like grabbing any calcs for this, because I assume most of you don't really care about that anyway. But moreover, Ulquiorra also has the ability to completely decimate a landmass the size of, at the very least, California. This is likely a low-ball estimate, as Ulquiorra has an attack that raises his power by an order of magnitude simply by him using it, and another attack that can nuke and completely dwarf an area the size of California. Ulquiorra is at the very lowest, this is if you lowball him, continental. He is likely far greater than even that. And this also doesn't take into account that he has high speed regeneration, with its only limitation being he can't restore his brain and internal organs. That's it. Now, sure, Lucy's vectors are very dangerous, and that's all well and good. I have no doubt that in a hypothetical scenario where she could use her vectors, she could potentially kill Ulquiorra. Now, let me explain. One of the abilities of Lucy's vectors is intangibility. Similar to Danny Phantom, he can make himself... You know how Danny Phantom can make himself completely intangible, right? And you just go right through him. Well, Lucy's vectors operate on similar principles. Her vectors can just go right through her body, and she can use this to, like, rip out your heart or something. She's used this ability on several occasions. Now, you could argue that Lucy could potentially use her vector's intangibility to, like, rip out Ulquiorra's brain or something. However, that would be the only possible way she would be able to kill Ulquiorra, and she would have to catch him off guard. But given that Ulquiorra has a very powerful sixth sense through his Pesquisa ability, it's highly unlikely that he would not be able to perceive the vectors, because we know that other Diclonius that also have the same sixth sense ability that Lucy does can also see the vectors. So one could argue that Ulquiorra would be able to see them and quickly realize, okay, I need to avoid them. Plus, Lucy's vectors have a limit as to how many she can use and how far they can reach out. But here's the problem. On top of the fact that Ulquiorra is stronger and faster and likely more durable, here's the thing. While the intangible thing would be a potential way for her to be able to kill Ulquiorra, in theory. However, here's the problem with that. Characters in Bleach fight with spirit energy, and their durability is based on their spirit energy. Now, it's been well established that when you fight a Bleach character, and the rules of the universe of how these characters fight is, so all these characters are already dead. They're ghosts, essentially. And they are nothing more than manifestations of spirit energy. So, when someone has more spirit energy than you, essentially, you can't cut them. The more spirit energy they have than you, the more harder it is to cut them, making them essentially completely invulnerable depending on how weak you are. We saw this when Ichigo first fought Kenpachi, and he wasn't even able to cut him until he was able to increase his spirit energy through the use of Zangetsu and fully unlock more and more of his power was he finally able to cut him. And even then, he was only barely able to even stalemate Kenpachi. Now, Ulquiorra has huge amounts of spirit energy. Ulquiorra's spirit energy was so great and so vast that he covered the entire roof of Las Noches with his spirit energy. His spirit energy, when he transforms, essentially turns into a rain. Not only that, but it also has the person that is in the vicinity of his spirit energy essentially be able to feel huge amounts of despair and even give into despair. And his spirit energy was so vast and so powerful, it was alien to Uryu. He couldn't even understand what he was even feeling at all. So take into account that Ulquiorra has insane amounts of spirit energy. Now, as for Lucy, here's the thing. You could argue that Lucy could potentially have spirit energy. Here's the thing. We don't know that. See, Lucy's power is not based on magic or spirit energy or being a ghost or anything like that. Lucy's powers are essentially similar to that of X-Men powers, where she is a mutant and that is where her powers come from. It's heavily implied that her powers exist through a form of evolution and that the Diclonius are a very advanced form of human being. Even her sixth sense is caused by essentially an extra membrane or something in her brain that human beings do not have. So her powers are essentially more science fiction based rather than fantasy based or spiritual based. So, to put it simply, it is highly unlikely that her vectors would even be able to do anything to Ulquiorra. While the intangibility thing is a nice idea on paper for a potential win, it's likely possible that her vectors wouldn't even be able to harm Ulquiorra because his spirit energy would be so great it would basically do nothing to him at all. And that's it. Her vectors are her only way of fighting. Take that away, what does Lucy have? How is she gonna fight him? Like, yeah, it's implied that Lucy is stronger and more durable than your average human being. She was able to take a 50 caliber bullet to the head, and she's strong enough to rip off a human head with her bare hands. That's all well and good, but against an Arrancar like Ulquiorra, that means almost nothing. Ulquiorra can kill an entire army of human beings by simply walking or existing. That's how powerful Bleach characters are. Spirit energy can be so dangerous that depending on how much spirit energy you have, you can literally kill someone just by walking past them. Like when Aizen killed a guy and completely vaporized him by just simply walking past him. Imagine Ulquiorra, what he would do if he was in Lucy's presence. Even if she could withstand not being obliterated, odds are she would be completely brought to her knees. So this fight is completely screwed. Because even if you could make the argument and prove that her intangibility would still be able to work, because due to Lucy's intangibility, it's possible for Lucy to ignore conventional forms of durability, which is great, and against most other opponents, Lucy would be an absolute beast, and this would give her a near unfair advantage. But the problem is, Bleach characters don't have conventional durability per se, because their durability is predicated on their amounts of spirit energy and Ryatsu, which Lucy does not have access to. So right there, the fight completely falls apart. And as I said earlier, even if you could prove the intangibility thing could potentially kill Ulquiorra, problem is, he's so strong and he's so fast that Lucy would die before she even knew what hit her. Okay, Ulquiorra is so freaking fast that when Ichigo battled him, his attack was so fast that Ichigo was essentially moving in bullet time to be able to proceed the attack, and even then he was barely able to dodge it. So if Ichigo, a guy that is also casually massively faster than light, could only barely dodge Ulquiorra's attacks, what hope does Lucy have? So the compatibility is completely out the window. Lucy would be dead in a matter of seconds, realistically. And it would be near impossible to have these two fight without breaking your suspension of disbelief. Even if you know nothing about these characters, just the fact that you have a ghost going up against a girl with essentially just mutant powers, just a very advanced human being, like, you can already tell that this fight doesn't work, even from the most casual perspective. All I have to do is explain to you how their powers work, and you know this fight is complete bullshit. But let's move on from compatibility. Okay, let's look at connections. Okay, what connections do these two have? Okay, they're both villains. Okay, that means nothing. They're both evil. Okay, that means nothing. They're both emotionless. Okay, that doesn't work. What do you have here to work with? They're both dangerous monsters. I can't think of any reasonable connection for why this could be interesting. I mean, I guess you could go for the whole angle of fantasy fiction versus science fiction, but even then, that would probably completely fall apart. I know I've been an advocate of sometimes things like magic versus science can be interesting, but this is not magic versus science. This is a ghost versus an advanced human being. And what do you have to work with here? I defy anyone in the comments to try to explain to me what connection they think these two would have. Okay, story. What story could you tell to connect these two universes together? What do you have to work with here? Like, I don't know, Aizen sends Ulquiorra to study and test Lucy's powers because Aizen is interested. Well, that doesn't seem to work because Aizen wouldn't be interested in Lucy, and I doubt Ulquiorra would even perceive Lucy as a threat to him. What do you have to connect these two universes together? They are incompatible as incompatible can be. This fight just doesn't work on any level. I mean, I guess maybe you can make an argument for potential chemistry between these two, as they're both highly intelligent villains, but even that can only go so far, because again, how can you realistically have these two fight? Because in a realistic scenario, Ulquiorra kills her in a matter of seconds. I don't get it. This, to me, just seems like someone thinking, well, I like Ulquiorra, I like Lucy, have them fight, and I'm sorry. But I know for some people, just simply seeing their favorite characters fight is enough to excite them. And in some of my younger years as a versus debater, maybe there was once a time where I would have thought, like, holy crap, Lucy and Ulquiorra, two of my favorite characters fighting, that sounds awesome, but I've grown since then, and I've come to understand that I just can't simply be entertained as a versus debater based solely on the premise that, well, I like these two characters. That may work for some, but at least for me, it does not work. And I don't understand how anyone could think that this battle would work. Like, here's what I don't get. People want to talk about how Lucy versus Carnage was bullshit, and don't get me wrong, that episode was garbage. However, if you thought that Lucy versus Carnage was a stomp, how can you think that Ulquiorra versus Lucy isn't also a stomp? Ulquiorra versus Lucy is arguably worse because, yeah, Carnage is FTL, and Carnage is potentially planet level. Ulquiorra is casually massively faster than Light. It's even worse in Ulquiorra's case. Not to mention, Lucy only has one possible way of being able to kill Ulquiorra, and it could potentially not even work, because it could be argued that since he's nothing but a manifestation of spirit energy, Lucy wouldn't have the necessary amounts of spirit energy to even get through his defenses anyway. But even if you could make that argument, the only chance Lucy has is to end the fight right there in the first opening seconds, which it's highly unlikely she would even be able to pull this off, because a sneak attack or catching Ulquiorra off guard is damn near impossible due to Ulquiorra's own sixth sense abilities, and him likely being able to see the vectors and realizing that I should probably stay away from these things. Even as intelligent as Lucy is, I mean, she was able to kill the equivalent of Brainiac in her universe. The problem is, she wouldn't be able to live long enough to even come up with any kind of plan to kill Ulquiorra, and he would be able to move so fast that she wouldn't even be able to perceive him anyway. As Ulquiorra is capable of moving so fast that even Uryu could not see him. That's how fast they were moving. And Uryu is a guy that can also move FTL and was able to go up against some of the fastest characters. And even he could barely keep up with Ulquiorra. Ulquiorra just completely wrecked Uryu like he was nothing. Even proclaiming to Uryu, "Is this supposed to harm me?" when referring to his attacks. I imagine with Lucy it would be even worse. See, this is why I have my 4-step system. Compatibility, chemistry and dynamics, story and connections. Because without this, this is what you end up with. I've said this so many times before, and I honestly sound like a broken record at this point. When you ignore compatibility, your fight falls apart. A good versus matchup, like a good house, it needs a foundation to be built on. And when there is no compatibility, the fight is going to crumble. If you try to build a house with no good foundation, it's just going to fall apart. The same is true here. Now, let's say you manage to prove that Ulquiorra and Lucy have great connections and could have amazing chemistry together in a fight. Okay, that doesn't change the reality that Lucy would die in seconds. I can only presume that this is either due to massive amounts of ignorance as to what these characters are capable of, or someone out there just really has a hate boner for Lucy and wants her to be humiliated for whatever reason. I can't. I can't with this fight. This might be the worst one I've seen so far. Now, I know I probably shouldn't be saying this because odds are my fans will just dig up something that's even worse than this, but I'm going to call it right here. As it stands right now, this is the worst idea I have ever seen, and I hope to God no one ever tries this idea. Death Battle, Fan War, Cartoon Fight Club, not Death Battle, Superpower Beatdown. If you are watching this video, don't ever try this idea. It is absolutely disastrous. I don't know how anyone can rationalize this. And again, rather you like Ulquiorra and Lucy or not, even if you love Bleach and Elfenlied, do you really think that you could love these two so much that that love alone would be able to allow you to suspend your disbelief far enough for these two to fight? Because compatibility is about more than just a character being too strong. It's also about two universes being able to be compatible with each other. There are some universes out there that are just incompatible, no matter what connections they may have. No matter what awesome story you think you can tell. For example, the DOA universe. Let's say you have the DOA universe try to pick a fight with the DC universe. I don't care what good connections you think they have, the DOA universe would not be able to work. Because not only would they die horrifically, but nobody in DOA has any kind of powers to be able to match the characters of the DC universe. The same argument could be made for a universe like Bleach. In Bleach, it is explained quite clearly that while sure, it is technically possible for a human to be able to punch and physically interact with a Hollow or Soul Reaper, here's the thing. Without adequate amounts of spirit energy, you will die. For example, Don Kanonji tried to pick a fight with Aizen, and you know what happened? He almost died. His attack did nothing, and his little cane weapon disintegrated as soon as it touched Aizen. Not to mention, other human characters have tried to pick fights with characters like Aizen, and it didn't work. Mizulito tried to blow up Aizen. That didn't work. Even other Soul Reapers tried to pick fights with Aizen, like that random Soul Reaper that was protecting Katakura Town when Ichigo was not around. Even he couldn't do anything. Bleach characters fight with spirit energy, and without spirit energy, it's damn near impossible to even be able to fight these characters. It's potentially possible depending on how strong the character is, but it's pretty much explained that if you have no form of spirit energy, you're basically gonna die. And with that, I don't know what else to say here. This fight sucks. Don't even try to defend this fight, because you can't. I mean, I know some people tell me that all that matters is entertainment value, and that all versus matchups are subjective. Even if you go off of this from a purely subjective level, what would be entertaining about sending Lucy to an inevitable death? I ask you this. Even if you try to pull the subjectivity card, there are objective facts when it comes to both of these characters that you cannot ignore. Objectivity is always going to be a factor, no matter how fictional these fights may be, because each fictional universe still has rules that must be followed. And if you try to break these rules, well then you just have no respect for the universe in question. So, yeah, I'll leave it there. What do you think of Lucy versus Ulquiorra? Do you think that there's more to this fight, and that maybe I'm just not digging deep enough into it? Or do you agree that's just an absolute train wreck and potentially the worst versus matchup idea ever conceived at all? Let me know what you think, and let me know how you feel about me tackling singular ideas, or if you prefer the format of me going after multiple matchups at a time. Let me know, and I'll see you guys around next time.
No, I'm a drug lover.